This is Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. Nick Kostos and Dave Richard here to help you win your fantasy matchups. In week number 6, starts and sits first at the quarterback position. Dave, I know you're expecting a big game on Monday night for Carson Palmer.
He's a top 10 quarterback. Welcome back, Carson, after missing some time, and it's going to come against the New York Jets. They've allowed 3+ touchdowns to all but one of their opponents this season through the air, and the one that they didn't, still 2 touchdowns. I think Palmer's offensive line is an issue, but Palmer still should find the end zone twice and have a good game. He's going to be great. Eli Manning, on the other hand, I would not want to start him against Baltimore. He's looked terrible the past couple of weeks. Tough matchups. This one isn't as tough, but I still have concerns about that offensive line protecting him, and I have concerns about how he's played behind that offensive line. I would try and start somebody like Marcus Mariota, Alex Smith, Brian Hoyer, those guys ahead of Eli Manning in week 6.
Now to running backs, Jonathan Stewart back in the lineup for the Carolina Panthers. He's got a plum matchup in New Orleans against the Saints.
That Saints run defense is bad, and with Cam Newton back, what better way to kind of protect him a little bit than having a balanced offensive approach, leaning on Jonathan Stewart. The Panthers will do that with him. I'm not sure they would have done that if it were Cameron Artis-Payne and Fozzie Whitaker in their backfield. So Jonathan Stewart should be penciled in for at least 15 carries. I think he can score. I think he's got a much better chance of scoring this week than he would in any other matchup with Cam Newton. Usually Cam takes a lot of those touchdowns. Not when he's got a concussion. They don't want to risk hurting him. I would sit Jeremy Hill against the Patriots. In their last 4 games, New England has allowed 3.4 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's bad. I also think the Patriots are going to steamroll the Bengals in the game. Giovanni Bernard will play more than Jeremy Hill, and Jeremy Hill will disappoint fantasy football owners.
Now to the wide receiver position. Dave, I know you're expecting a big game Sunday night from Texans rookie speedster Will Fuller.
And I always do expect a big game from Fuller when his quarterback won't be under pressure. And I think that's going to be the case this week against Indianapolis. I don't see the Colts bringing a heavy blitz against him. And that means Osweiler can set his feet, throw deep. He's shown that he can do that. Fuller's played well at home, and Indianapolis' secondary just isn't that good. They just allowed a ton of yards and a touchdown to Cameron Meredith last week. So it's Will Fuller's turn now. I would start him. I would actually sit Julian Edelman. Going back to that Patriots game, Marvin Lewis has played against Tom Brady a lot. The one guy he seems to always try and take away from Brady is the slot receiver. That's Edelman. I think last week, 10 targets, he didn't do a lot with him. Maybe that foot issue is bothering him. Try and get away from Edelman in fantasy if you can.
Now to tight ends, and it's a pair of Zachs on these starts and sits. Which Zach are you looking to start?
It's a Zach attack. Let's go with Zach Miller in Chicago going up against Jacksonville. I think that's a good matchup for him going up against the Jaguars defense. They're going to be pretty healthy and pretty strong, but Brian Hoyer likes to throw into single coverage. He doesn't like to take chances with the football. Miller has been that Johnny-on-the-spot type guy for him. If you're streaming tight ends, he's one to go with. I would actually sit Zach Ertz of the Eagles going up against Washington, not because it's a tough matchup. I think Philadelphia is going to run the ball a lot this game. Ryan Matthews should have a big game. Zach Ertz has been a disappointment so far this season. Fantasy owners should try and get away from him if they can.
Those were your starts and sits for week number 6. For Dave Richard, I'm Nick Kostos. You've been watching Fantasy Football Today on CBS Local Sports.